So if you're like me, you're out there and you have a Mark III, you're wondering, should you upgrade to the 5DS? I'm going to cover some things in this video to help you decide whether you should upgrade or not, so that you don't have to make that purchase without the information that you need. Right away, you're going to see that they have the exact same body, but there's one major glaring thing that's missing off of the 5DS, and that is that there's no headphone jack. And on the Mark III, there is a headphone jack. If you're like me, I use this a lot for video, and not having a headphone jack is a huge problem, and I really don't even know why they took it out. There's also no new video options. All the video options that you had on your Mark III, it's the exact same in this. So really no benefit as far as video. So one of the factors that they don't normally cover in these comparison videos is sex appeal. Now, you'll see that both of these cameras look exactly the same, but the 5DS, you're going to have a little bit of bling because on the strap it's gold. So everybody's going to know that you have this fancy camera with 50 megapixels. As far as sex appeal, all you're going to have to do is snap your fingers, and you're going to have girls all over you wanting to talk to you because they know that you have this nice camera. So I don't know about you, but for me, that actually is a pretty big factor because at the end of the day, this is what it's all about. Do you want a model?
Yeah.
See, and now you got a model. All right, so I've taken a couple test images, and to take the test images, I use the same tripod, same lens, and we'll just swap out the cameras. To start, let's look at a landscape photo. If we start with the Mark III, it looks good, lots of detail, we're zoomed out, and then we look at the 5DS. They're almost identical, but it seems that the 5DS shoots a little bit darker. When I brought these photos into Photoshop, I didn't mess with the exposure, the brightness, or contrast, or anything like that. I left them just as they were out of camera. I didn't want to affect the look there. For the landscape photos, the settings on the camera were 1/60th of a second for the shutter speed, 1/16th for the f-stop, and ISO 100. Now, the landscape photos look almost identical until you zoom in. And I zoomed in on this surveillance sign to really show the difference between the two. Now, this is probably more than you'd ever zoom in on this type of photo, but I really just wanted to show at what point you start to see a difference. And you can see some blocks starting to happen, some pixels starting to show in the 5DS image, and then you can see that it's a little bit worse in the Mark III image. Obviously the 5DS is coming out on top. It's really by a pretty small margin, and I'm pushing in on this photo pretty unrealistic amount, but going into this photo to cut out this building and then do something with the sky, maybe drop the sky down, make it darker or something, then those pixels would start to be really useful to get a nice clean cut and do what I needed to do. So now let's go look at the pictures of the model. And again, you'll notice that on the Mark III image, it seems that the Mark III always shoots a little bit lighter, and then the 5DS is always shooting a little bit darker. I'm not sure why that is. The settings, again, were identical. For this shot, both cameras were set to f/18, and the shutter speed was 125. And I had two soft boxes on either side of the camera, both pointed at her at about a 45-degree angle. So the 5DS is definitely darker, and I made an image for you to check out where I zoomed into her hair and her eye. And on the Mark III, it looks good. And again, this is probably more than you would zoom in on here, but if for some reason you needed to come in and cut her out, cut something out or edit, you're starting to see some blocks, some pixels. It's not blowing me away, but I can see that, okay, the 5DS is doing a little bit better here. So then I went ahead and just pushed it even further, and I went into her right eye. Now it's really getting obvious that the Mark III, we're looking at pixels now, and the 5DS, we still got a little bit of room to play with. So at this point, both pictures are showing pixels again, but the 5DS is just that much better. Okay, so now that we've looked at these two pictures side by side and we've seen the difference between the two cameras, what do I think overall, which camera should you get? I think if you're a video and photo guy where you're using the camera for two things, I would just stick with the Mark III and use that extra $1,000 that's left over to buy more accessories or a nice tripod or another camera or whatever you need. And if you're only doing stills, then the 5DS is a little bit better. Obviously it's a little bit bigger picture, but we might be hitting that point where can the lens keep up with that 50 megapixel sensor? I'm gonna let the technical guys figure that out. For me personally, the Mark III is enough, plenty enough, and the difference between the two isn't convincing enough for me to want to go with the 5DS. And if you think I'm just saying that, well, I'm actually going to send the 5DS back and just keep rolling with my Mark IIIs. It's just not worth the money right now. So this is the part where I say goodbye and I turn back and pretend like I'm still working on the thing on my computer.